The church bells tolled like a death knell, and Keira Zimmerman stood frozen in the bridal suite, staring at the wedding dress that felt more like a funeral shroud than a symbol of joy. She couldn't breathe. The corset was too tight. Or perhaps it was the crushing weight of what was about to happen that made her lungs refuse to cooperate. Through the small window, she could see the guests arriving, expensive cars pulling up to the old stone church her father had insisted upon. Politicians, business partners, people who saw this wedding as a merger rather than a marriage. "You look beautiful, sweetheart," her mother said, but there was no warmth in the words, just the mechanical satisfaction of a woman who had successfully groomed her daughter for sale. Keira met her own reflection in the full-length mirror. 22 years old, dark hair arranged in elaborate curls, makeup applied with professional precision to hide the shadows under her green eyes from nights of crying herself to sleep. She looked like a stranger. She felt like a prisoner. "I don't love him," Keira whispered, one last desperate attempt to be heard. Her mother's expression hardened. "Love is a luxury we can't afford. Your father's company is drowning in debt. Marcus Whitley's family is offering to save us. This is your duty to this family. Duty." That word had haunted her for 6 months, ever since her father had announced the engagement over dinner, like he was discussing a business acquisition. Marcus was 43, divorced twice, with cold eyes and hands that gripped too hard when he thought no one was watching. He spoke to her like she was a possession he'd already purchased, mentally cataloging his new property. A knock sounded at the door. 5 minutes, Miss Zimmerman. 5 minutes until she walked down that aisle. 5 minutes until she promised forever to a man who made her skin crawl. 5 minutes until her life became a cage she'd never escape. Her mother fussed with the veil, adjusting it one final time. "Don't embarrass us, Keira. Smile. Look happy. The photographer will be watching." Then she was gone, leaving Keira alone with her reflection and her despair. She thought about running. She'd thought about it constantly for months. But where would she go? Her father had made it clear that if she refused, they'd lose everything. Her younger sister would have to drop out of college. Her mother's medical treatments would stop. The guilt had been carefully cultivated, wrapped around her like chains. The door opened again. Her father stood there in his expensive suit, looking every inch the successful businessman, even though Keira knew the truth. Behind the tailored exterior was a man who'd gambled everything on bad investments and was now selling his daughter to cover his mistakes. "Ready?" he asked, as if she had a choice. Keira picked up her bouquet with trembling hands. White roses. Marcus had chosen them. He'd chosen everything about this wedding, just as he'd tried to choose everything about her life afterward. They walked down the corridor toward the main hall. Through the closed doors, she could hear the string quartet playing. The processional would start any moment. Her father's grip on her arm was firm, steering her forward like she might bolt at any second. He was right to worry. At the doors, he paused, turning to face her. For just a moment, Keira thought she saw regret flash across his features. Then it was gone, replaced by stern determination. "This is for the best," he said. Though she wasn't sure if he was trying to convince her or himself, the doors began to open. Keira could see down the long aisle, see Marcus standing at the altar in his designer suit, that proprietary smile on his face. See hundreds of eyes turning toward her. See the cage door swinging shut. Her feet wouldn't move. "Keira," her father hissed. "Don't you dare." The front doors of the church exploded inward. Not slowly, not with a gentle creak. They burst open with such force that the ancient wood splintered, fragments flying through the air as screams erupted from the assembled guests. The sound was like thunder, like the world itself was breaking apart. A figure stood silhouetted in the doorway, backlit by the gray afternoon light, tall, impossibly tall, with hair so white it seemed to glow and skin like marble carved by a master sculptor. He wore black from head to toe, expensive fabrics that moved like liquid shadow, and when he stepped into the church, every person in attendance fell silent, not with awe, with primal, instinctive terror. Keira's breath caught in her throat. She'd never seen anyone like him. He moved with fluid grace that was almost hypnotic, each step deliberate and purposeful. His features were sharp and aristocratic, beautiful in a way that hurt to look at, like staring directly at something holy and profane all at once. But it was his eyes that paralyzed her. Even from across the church, she could see them, red as fresh blood, ancient as time itself, and fixed directly on her. "What is the meaning of this?" Marcus sputtered, recovering faster than anyone else. "This is a private ceremony. Security!" The white-haired man ignored him completely. He walked down the aisle, and Keira watched in stunned fascination as people scrambled out of his way, pressing themselves against the pews like he might burn them with a touch. Someone was crying. Someone else was praying. They knew what he was, even if her conscious mind was still struggling to accept it. He stopped 3 feet from where Keira stood frozen, her father's hand still clutching her arm. Up close, he was even more breathtaking and terrifying, tall enough that she had to tilt her head back to meet those impossible red eyes. His face was composed, regal, with high cheekbones and a strong jaw that spoke of nobility and power. When he spoke, his voice was like velvet over steel, with an accent she couldn't place but that suggested old-world elegance. "You don't want this." It wasn't a question. Keira's mouth opened, but no sound came out. Her mind was screaming 1,000 questions, but her voice had abandoned her. "Get away from my daughter," her father demanded, though his voice shook. "I don't know who you are," but the white-haired man turned those red eyes on him, and her father's words died instantly. The stranger didn't make any threatening gesture, didn't even change expression, but her father went pale and released Keira's arm like it had burned him. "Who I am," the man said softly, dangerously, "is Lucien Everhart, and I am here to offer your daughter a choice. Lucien Everhart." The name resonated through the church like a bell toll, and the reaction was immediate. More screams, people pushing toward the exits. Keira saw Marcus's face drain of color, saw him stumble backward. She didn't understand why that name carried such weight, but clearly everyone else did. Lucien turned back to her, and his expression softened fractionally. "You're being forced into this marriage. I can smell your fear, your desperation. It permeates every breath you take." He paused, then extended one elegant hand toward her. "I am offering you an alternative." Keira stared at his outstretched hand. His fingers were long, graceful, tipped with nails that looked almost like claws. She could see dark veins beneath his translucent skin, could see the otherworldly perfection that marked him as something definitely not human. "You're," she whispered. "You're a vampire." His lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. Yes! The word was simple, direct, completely unashamed. He stood before an entire church of humans announcing his nature with no fear whatsoever. That spoke to power beyond Keira's comprehension. "Why?" she managed. "Why would you help me? Because 3 nights ago, I attended a charity gala where I heard you speak about the importance of freedom and choice for women trapped in impossible situations. The irony of your own predicament was not lost on me." His red eyes held hers, intense and unwavering. "You fought for others while preparing to sacrifice yourself. I find that remarkable." Keira remembered that gala. It had been one of the last events before the wedding, and Marcus had barely let her out of his sight all evening. But there had been a moment, a speech she'd given on behalf of a women's shelter, where she'd poured all her own anguish into her words without anyone realizing she was speaking about herself. He'd been there. He'd heard. He'd understood. "Take his hand, and you will be under my protection," Lucien said, his voice carrying through the now silent church. "No one will force you into anything again. You will be free to choose your own path. She will be dead." Marcus finally found his voice, anger overriding fear. "Everyone knows what vampires do to humans. She'll be nothing but food for your kind." Lucien didn't even look at him. "I am offering sanctuary, not harm. The choice is entirely hers." "Keira, don't be stupid," her father snapped, recovering some of his composure. "He's a monster. Think about your family. Think about everything we'll lose. Think about yourself." Lucien interrupted quietly, still focused on her. "What do you want, Keira Zimmerman? Not what they want." "What do you want?" It was the first time anyone had asked her that in 6 months. Keira looked at Marcus, seeing the rage on his face, the way he looked at her like property that was being stolen. She looked at her father, seeing the calculation in his eyes, the way he'd already tallied her worth against his debts. She looked at her mother in the front pew, dabbing her eyes but looking more concerned about the scandal than her daughter's well-being. Then she looked at Lucien Everhart, the vampire king whose name made humans flee, who had crashed her wedding and offered her something she'd thought impossible, freedom. Her hand shook as she raised it. "If I take your hand, what happens to them?" "My family. Nothing," Lucien said simply. "Their debts are their own. But you will be under my protection, which means any attempt to force you back will be dealt with severely." His eyes flickered briefly to Marcus. "And anyone who has threatened or harmed you will answer to me." Marcus stumbled back another step. Keira's heart was pounding so hard she thought it might burst through her chest. This was insane. She was actually considering running off with a vampire, a creature from stories and nightmares, someone she didn't know at all. But she did know Marcus. She knew her father. She knew exactly what her life would become if she walked down that aisle. She placed her hand in Lucien's. His fingers closed around hers, cool and strong, and the relief that flooded through her was so intense she nearly sobbed. The wedding dress suddenly felt lighter. The church felt larger, like she could breathe again. "You can't do this," her father roared. "I'll call the police. You'll do nothing," Lucien said. And there was steel in his voice now, a command that resonated with power. "Your daughter is of age, making her own choice. Any attempt to interfere will be considered an act of aggression against the vampire courts. Do you really want to test those consequences?" Her father's mouth opened and closed, but no words emerged. Lucien turned to Keira, his expression softening again. "We should leave. Can you walk in that dress?" Keira looked down at the elaborate gown, the train that pooled behind her, the ridiculous heels Marcus had insisted on. Not quickly. Without warning, Lucien swept her into his arms, lifting her as effortlessly as if she weighed nothing at all. Keira let out a startled gasp, automatically wrapping her arms around his neck. Up close, she could see that his skin really was as flawless as it appeared, could see the way his white hair fell in silky strands past his shoulders, could feel the supernatural strength in the arms that held her. He carried her down the aisle, past the gaping guests, past her family, past Marcus, who looked like he might actually attack. But one glance from Lucien kept him frozen in place. At the shattered church doors, Lucien paused and looked back. Consider this a message. Forced marriages, coerced vows, these are not acceptable in the modern age. The vampire courts will be watching. Act accordingly. Then they were outside, and Keira gulped in the fresh air like she'd been drowning. The gray afternoon had never looked so beautiful. A car waited at the curb, sleek and black and expensive. The driver, a thin man with pale skin and yellow eyes, opened the back door without comment, as if his employer regularly kidnapped brides from churches. Lucien set Keira gently inside, then slid in beside her. The door closed, sealing them into leather-scented luxury, and the car pulled away smoothly just as people started pouring out of the church behind them. Keira watched through the back window as the church, her prison, her nightmare, receded into the distance. She was shaking violently now, adrenaline crashing through her system, making her hands tremble and her breath come in short gasps. "You're safe," Lucien said quietly. "Breathe. You're safe now." "I don't understand," Keira whispered. "Why would you do this? You don't even know me. I told you. I heard you speak." He turned those red eyes on her, and Keira felt pinned by the intensity of his gaze. "You have fire in you, conviction, strength. Watching that light be extinguished by a forced marriage to a man like Marcus Whitley would have been a waste. But you're the vampire king. That's what everyone called you." "One of them," Lucien corrected. "Vampire society has multiple rulers, depending on region and bloodline. I govern the Northeast Territories, including this city." Keira's mind was reeling. "Vampire society. This is real. You're really a vampire. I am, and I just let you kidnap me from my wedding. I prefer to think of it as a rescue." The corner of his mouth lifted slightly, though kidnapping is technically accurate if you prefer that term. A laugh bubbled up from Keira's chest, slightly hysterical. "This is insane. This is completely insane." "Yes," Lucien agreed calmly, "but you're free. Was it not worth a bit of insanity?" Keira looked down at her hands, at the engagement ring Marcus had placed there, a gaudy diamond that she'd always hated. She twisted it off her finger and held it up to the light. "I need to throw this away. Keep it if you wish. Sell it. Throw it in a river. It's yours to do with as you please. Everything from this moment is your choice." The words made her throat tight with emotion. Keira clutched the ring, then on impulse, rolled down the window and threw it as hard as she could. She watched it disappear into the urban landscape, one more piece of glittering trash on the street. "That felt good," she admitted. "I imagine it did." They drove in silence for a while, weaving through the city streets. Keira recognized some of the neighborhoods, but as they continued, they moved into areas she'd never visited. Older parts of the city, where Gothic architecture loomed and shadows seemed deeper. "Where are we going?" she finally asked. "My home," Lucien said. "You'll stay there until you decide what you want to do next." "Stay with you? In your castle?" "I prefer the term manor, but yes, it's quite comfortable, I assure you, and heavily protected. No one will reach you there without my permission." Keira turned to look at him properly. He sat with perfect posture, hands folded in his lap, looking every inch the aristocrat. His profile was striking, all elegant lines and sharp edges. He was beautiful in a way that didn't seem quite real, like a painting come to life. "Why do you look like that?" she asked before she could stop herself. "The white hair, the pale skin, is that all vampires?" "Yes." "The transformation bleaches the color from hair and skin. It's one of the most obvious markers of our kind." He glanced at her, along with the eyes and the dietary requirements. "Blood," Keira said, her stomach tightening. "You drink blood. I do. Are you going to drink mine?" "Not without your permission, no." His tone was matter-of-fact. "And not for sustenance. I have other sources for that. Other sources. Blood banks, primarily. and willing donors who understand what they're offering. The days of vampires hunting humans in the streets are long past, Miss Zimmerman. We've adapted to modern times, just as humanity has. It should have sounded ridiculous. It should have terrified her. Instead, Keira found herself oddly reassured by the practical way he discussed it. There was no romance in his words, no attempt to make vampirism seem mysterious or seductive. Just facts, delivered calmly. "Call me Keira," she said. "If I'm staying with you, we should probably skip the formalities." "Keira," he repeated, and she liked the way her name sounded in his accent. "Then you must call me Lucien." The car turned through an elaborate gate, and Keira's eyes widened. The manor that appeared before them was stunning, all Gothic stonework and arched windows, like something from a Victorian novel. It sprawled across manicured grounds, 3 stories of elegant architecture that somehow felt both imposing and welcoming. "This is yours?" she breathed. "For the past century and a half, yes." Lucien's tone carried a hint of pride. "My family estate in Europe is older, but this serves as my primary residence in the modern era." A century and a half. Keira tried to process that, tried to understand that the man beside her had lived through more than 100 years of history. How old was he really? 200 years? 300? The car stopped at the entrance, and the driver opened her door. Keira gathered her ridiculous dress and attempted to step out with some dignity. Lucien appeared at her side instantly, offering his arm for support. "Thank you," she murmured, accepting it. The heels were murderous on the gravel drive. "I'll have appropriate clothing sent to your rooms," Lucien said, guiding her toward the entrance. "I assume you'd prefer to burn that dress?" "Enthusiastically," Keira confirmed. The interior of the manor was even more impressive than the exterior. High ceilings, antique furniture, artwork that looked like it belonged in museums, but it wasn't oppressive or dusty. Everything was immaculately maintained, and warm lighting made the spaces feel lived in rather than frozen in time. A woman appeared from a side hallway, middle-aged with kind eyes and human coloring. "My lord," she said, dipping her head respectfully. "I've prepared the East Wing guest suite as requested." "Excellent. Thank you, Mrs. Chen." Lucien turned to Keira. "This is my head of household. If you need anything during your stay, she can assist you." Mrs. Chen smiled at Keira with no trace of judgment despite the wedding dress and obvious circumstances. "Welcome, miss. Would you like me to show you to your rooms?" "That would be wonderful," Keira said gratefully. "I have matters to attend to," Lucien said, "but I'll join you for dinner at 8 if that's agreeable. We should discuss your situation properly." Keira nodded, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving her shaky and overwhelmed. Mrs. Chen led her up a sweeping staircase to the 2nd floor, down a corridor lined with portraits of stern-faced individuals that Keira suspected were vampire nobility. The guest suite turned out to be larger than her entire apartment, with a sitting room, bedroom, and bathroom that looked like something from a luxury hotel. "I'll have clothing sent up immediately," Mrs. Chen said, "and I'll arrange for that dress to be removed, unless you'd prefer to keep it." "Burn it," Keira said, "please." Mrs. Chen's expression didn't change, but there was understanding in her eyes. "Of course, miss. Is there anything else you need?" A moment to process that this is real. The older woman's smile was gentle. "That's entirely understandable. Take all the time you need. If you get hungry before dinner, there's a phone by the bed. Just dial 0 and someone will bring you anything you'd like." Then Keira was alone in the opulent room, still wearing her wedding dress, having just been rescued by a vampire king she didn't know. She walked to the window and looked out over the grounds, seeing gardens and fountains, and what looked like a hedge maze in the distance. Her phone buzzed in the small pocket she'd had sewn into the dress. With trembling hands, she pulled it out and saw dozens of missed calls and texts. Her father, her mother, Marcus, even her sister. She read one text from her father. "You've destroyed this family. Come home immediately." Then one from Marcus. "You're making a huge mistake. That creature will kill you." And one from her younger sister, Claire. "Are you okay? Please tell me you're okay." Keira's fingers hovered over the keyboard. Then she typed a single message to Claire. "I'm safe. I'm sorry. I couldn't do it." She turned off her phone before any responses could come through. A knock sounded, and a young woman entered carrying an armful of clothing. "Mrs. Chen sent these. There's more coming, but she thought you'd want to change immediately." "Thank you," Keira said fervently. Alone again, she stripped out of the hated dress with vicious satisfaction, kicking it into a corner. The clothing proved to be comfortable basics. Jeans, soft sweaters, undergarments that were surprisingly nice. She pulled on the jeans and a cream-colored sweater, then took down her hair, brushing out the elaborate curls until it fell naturally around her shoulders. In the bathroom, she washed off the heavy makeup, revealing the face underneath. Her own face, free of the mask they'd painted on, she looked like herself again. It made her want to cry. Instead, she explored the suite, finding books on the shelves, a television hidden in an armoire, art on the walls. Someone lived here regularly, she realized. These weren't just empty guest quarters. The books were arranged by someone with particular taste, the furniture positioned with care. At 7:30, another knock brought Mrs. Chen. "Lord Lucien requests your presence for dinner if you're ready." "Miss, I'm ready," Keira said, though her stomach was fluttering with nerves. She followed the housekeeper downstairs to a smaller dining room, more intimate than the grand formal space she'd glimpsed earlier. A table was set for two, candles providing soft illumination, and Lucien stood by the window, looking out at the darkening grounds. He'd changed as well, now wearing dark slacks and a white shirt that contrasted starkly with his pale coloring. He turned as she entered, and Keira saw his expression shift subtly, something like approval flickering across his features. "Much better," he said. "You look far more comfortable." "I am. Thank you for the clothes. And for everything." Keira moved into the room, feeling awkward. "I still can't quite believe this is happening. Please sit." Lucien pulled out a chair for her, the gesture formal but sincere. Keira sat, watching as he took the seat across from her. Almost immediately, staff entered with covered dishes, serving what turned out to be an elaborate meal. Salmon, roasted vegetables, fresh bread, real food, beautifully prepared. "Can you eat this?" she asked, gesturing to the spread. "I can, though it provides no nutritional value for me." Lucien poured wine into her glass, then his own. "I enjoy the taste, however, and the ritual of dining. It's one of the pleasures I've retained from my human life." "How long ago was that? Your human life?" 273 years. He said it casually, like he was mentioning he'd graduated college a few years back. Keira took a long drink of wine. "That's a long time." "It is. I was turned in 1753, during what you would call the Georgian era. A different world entirely. Do you miss it? Being human?" Lucien considered the question while cutting his salmon with precise movements. "I missed it once. The sunlight, primarily. Mortality has its own sort of freedom, a urgency that immortality lacks. But I've adapted. Vampirism grants its own gifts that balance the losses, like super strength. I saw you tear those church doors apart. That, yes. Also enhanced senses, rapid healing, and of course, the ability to live indefinitely if one is careful." He paused. "And the power to help people who need it, such as yourself." Keira pushed food around her plate, appetite still uncertain. "Why did you really help me?" "Lucien, the truth. You heard me give one speech. That can't be the whole reason." He met her eyes directly. "I told you the truth, but perhaps not all of it." He set down his fork. "I have watched humanity evolve for nearly 3 centuries, watched rights expand, watched people fight for freedom and dignity. But I've also watched those with power exploit those without it, watched women especially be treated as commodities. It offends me." "Offends you enough to risk exposing yourself? Everyone at that church saw you. They know what you are now. They already knew of me. The supernatural community is not as hidden as humans like to believe. We exist in the shadows of your world, acknowledged but not openly discussed." Lucien's expression turned grim. "Your Marcus Whitley, for instance, has had dealings with less scrupulous vampires, business arrangements that exploit human vulnerabilities." Keira's stomach turned. "What kind of dealings?" "The kind that involve using vampire influence to manipulate stock markets and ruin competitors. The kind where human ethics become inconvenient obstacles to be removed." He leaned back in his chair. "When I learned he was forcing a marriage to clear his debts, it seemed an opportunity to make a statement. The vampire courts do not approve of such tactics. So I was convenient," Keira said, trying to keep the hurt from her voice. "No." The word was sharp, commanding her attention. "You were remarkable. I have attended hundreds of human gatherings, heard thousands of speeches. Yours resonated because it was real, because you spoke from genuine conviction, despite your own circumstances. That is rare, Keira. That is worth protecting." The intensity in his red eyes made her breath catch. She believed him. More than that, she felt the truth of his words in her bones. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. "I can't go home. My family will never forgive me for this." "My life is basically destroyed." "Your old life is destroyed," Lucien corrected. "But you have the opportunity to build a new one. Whatever you want it to be. I don't even know what I want. Everything has been planned for me for so long." Keira's voice cracked. "College major, career path, marriage. I've never made a real choice about my own life. Then take time to discover what you want. You're welcome to stay here as long as you need. No obligations, no expectations. Just safety and space to decide your own future." It was too generous, too perfect. Keira waited for the catch, for the demand that would turn this into another cage, but Lucien simply resumed eating, giving her time to process. "There must be something you want from me," she finally said. "People don't just help for nothing. I want you to be free," Lucien said simply. "That's all. If that seems insufficient motivation, perhaps consider that I have lived long enough to value watching potential flourish over extracting debts." They ate in silence for a while, Keira gradually relaxing enough to actually taste the food. It was delicious, prepared with obvious skill. Whatever else was true, Lucien clearly appreciated quality. "Tell me about vampire society," she said eventually. "If I'm staying in this world, even temporarily, I should understand it." Lucien nodded, seeming pleased by the question. "We're organized into territories and courts, each governed by ancient bloodlines. I am one of 5 kings in North America, descended from European nobility, who emigrated during the colonial period. We maintain order among our kind, enforce our laws, and manage relationships with the human world." "Laws like what?" "No killing humans without cause. No turning humans without extensive vetting and permission. No exposing our nature recklessly. No interfering in human governance unless absolutely necessary." He counted them off on his fingers. "We've learned that coexistence requires structure. The alternative is war, and wars between species end badly for everyone. But you interfered today, at the wedding." "I prevented a forced marriage, which falls under protecting human welfare. It's a gray area, but one I'm willing to defend if challenged." Keira absorbed that. "Would you be challenged? Possibly. Some of my fellow rulers prefer absolute non-intervention. But I believe we have a responsibility to use our power ethically." His expression turned wry. "I've been called progressive for a vampire, which should tell you something about vampire politics." That startled a laugh from her. "Progressive. A 273-year-old vampire is progressive, relatively speaking." His lips curved in a genuine smile, and Keira realized it transformed his face. The severe beauty became something warmer, more approachable. They talked through the rest of dinner, Lucien answering her questions with patient detail. He explained vampire physiology, the transformation process, the weaknesses and strengths. He told her about the underground courts, the elaborate balls and political maneuvering, the ancient feuds and alliances. It was fascinating and terrifying in equal measure. This whole hidden world existing parallel to humanity, invisible until you knew where to look. "Can I ask a personal question?" Keira ventured as dessert was served. "Of course, do you have? Are there other people like me? Humans you've helped?" "A few over the years, not many. Most humans never cross my path in circumstances where intervention is appropriate." Lucien paused. "If you're asking whether I make a habit of collecting damsels in distress, the answer is no. You're unique in my experience." "I'm not a damsel in distress," Keira said, bristling slightly. "I'm a woman who was trapped." "Yes," Lucien agreed immediately. "I apologize for the poor phrasing. You're a woman who was trapped and made the brave choice to accept help from a stranger rather than submit to injustice. That's not weakness. That's courage." Mollified, Keira toyed with her chocolate mousse. "I've never been called brave before. Then you've been surrounded by people who didn't see you clearly." The words settled over her like a warm blanket. When was the last time someone had really seen her, had looked past the dutiful daughter, the convenient bride, the useful pawn? She couldn't remember. After dinner, Lucien walked her back toward the guest wing. The manor was quiet, lit by elegant sconces that created pools of golden light in the darkness. "I have business to attend to tonight," Lucien said as they reached her door. "But if you need anything, Mrs. Chen is available, and there are guards throughout the property." "Guards? Is that necessary?" His expression turned serious. "Your former fiancé has connections to dangerous people. I don't anticipate immediate retaliation, but I prefer to be cautious where your safety is concerned." The thought of Marcus coming after her made Keira's chest tighten with anxiety. "He won't just let this go, will he?" "No," Lucien said honestly. "Men like Marcus Whitley don't handle rejection well, especially public humiliation. But he'll have to go through me to reach you. And that's not a battle he can win." He stepped closer, and Keira caught a scent like winter air and old books. "I meant what I said, Keira. You're under my protection. I don't offer that lightly, and I don't fail to honor it." Looking up at him, seeing the absolute certainty in those red eyes, Keira believed him. This ancient, powerful vampire had declared himself her shield, and somehow that felt more secure than any promise a human had ever made her. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." Lucien inclined his head in a gesture that was almost courtly. "Sleep well. Tomorrow we'll discuss practical matters and your options going forward." Then he was gone, moving with that supernatural grace that barely seemed to disturb the air. Keira entered her suite and closed the door, leaning against it as she finally let herself feel everything that had happened today. She'd escaped. Against all odds, she'd actually escaped. The tears came then, huge racking sobs of relief and terror and delayed shock. Keira slid down the door and cried into her hands, letting out all the fear she'd been holding for months, all the desperation and hopelessness. But underneath it all was something else, something fragile and new, hope. She cried herself out eventually, then dragged herself to the bedroom and collapsed onto the enormous bed. Despite everything, exhaustion claimed her quickly, pulling her into dreamless sleep. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the windows. For a moment, she was disoriented, expecting to see her apartment ceiling or worse, the hotel room where she was supposed to have spent her wedding night with Marcus. Instead, she saw unfamiliar molding, elegant furniture, and remembered the Vampire King's manor. Freedom. A new life she had no idea how to build. Keira sat up slowly, taking stock. Her body ached with leftover tension, but she was alive and unmarried and safe. That was more than she'd dared hope for yesterday. A knock at the door revealed Mrs. Chen with a breakfast tray. "Good morning, miss. I hope you slept well." "I did, actually. Thank you." Keira accepted the tray, finding fresh pastries, fruit, and coffee. "Is Lucien awake?" "Lord Lucien retired at dawn and will sleep most of the day, I'm afraid. Vampires are nocturnal by necessity. But he left instructions that you should make yourself at home and explore the grounds if you wish. He'll join you for dinner again this evening." Right, vampires and sunlight. Keira had forgotten that detail in the chaos of yesterday. So he can't go outside during the day at all? Not without considerable pain and rapid deterioration. No. The manor is designed to be completely light-sealed for safety. Mrs. Chen smiled. "But the grounds are lovely and entirely safe for you during daylight hours. I can arrange a guide if you'd like. Just pointing me toward the gardens would be wonderful." After breakfast and a long shower, Keira dressed in jeans and a soft blue sweater from the clothing that had been provided. Someone had excellent taste and had guessed her size perfectly. She made her way downstairs and out through a side door Mrs. Chen had indicated. The grounds were even more beautiful in daylight. Manicured lawns gave way to elaborate garden beds bursting with late spring flowers. Stone paths wound between fountains and statuary. In the distance, she could see the hedge maze, and beyond that, what looked like a small forest. It was peaceful in a way Keira hadn't experienced in months. No one demanding her attention, no one dictating her schedule. Just quiet and beauty and space to breathe. She wandered for hours, exploring the gardens, finding a small pond with koi fish, discovering a greenhouse full of exotic plants. The property was enormous, easily 20 acres, and completely private behind high stone walls. A prison could be gilded and beautiful, Keira reminded herself. But somehow this didn't feel like a prison. The walls were keeping danger out, not keeping her in. Around mid-afternoon, she found a bench near the pond and sat down, pulling out her phone. She'd turned it back on that morning to find hundreds of messages. Most she deleted without reading. But she did read the ones from her sister, Claire. "Please call me. I need to know you're okay. Claire, Mom and Dad are furious. Marcus is threatening legal action. But I don't care about that. I just need to know you're safe. Claire." I saw what he was, Keira. The white hair, the red eyes. "Are you with a vampire? Please tell me you know what you're doing." Keira stared at the messages, then typed carefully. "I'm safe. I promise. I can't explain everything right now, but I couldn't marry Marcus. I just couldn't. This was my only option." The response came almost immediately. "I understand. I don't blame you. Marcus was awful. But a vampire, Keira? What if he hurts you?" "He won't. He's giving me protection while I figure out what to do next. No strings attached." "Mom says you've destroyed the family. Dad says Marcus's family is threatening to sue for breach of contract." Kira's jaw clenched. "Let them try. I won't be bullied into that marriage." "Good. I'm proud of you, even if Mom and Dad aren't. Stay safe. I love you." "I love you too." Keira turned off the phone again, not ready to deal with anything beyond Claire's support. Her younger sister was the only family member who'd ever treated her like a person rather than an asset. The sun was setting when she finally made her way back to the manor. Mrs. Chen met her at the door with a smile. "Lord Lucien is awake and would like to see you in his study if you're available." Of course. The study was on the second floor, a room lined floor to ceiling with books. Ancient leather-bound volumes, modern hardcovers, everything in between. Lucien sat behind a massive desk, reading something on a tablet, looking anachronistically modern despite his timeless appearance. He glanced up as she entered, and Keira saw his expression warm. "Good evening. I trust you rested well?" "I did. Your grounds are beautiful." "I'm pleased you enjoyed them. Please, sit." He gestured to a comfortable chair across from his desk. We need to discuss practical matters. Keira settled into the chair, nervous about what this conversation might bring. Lucien set aside the tablet and folded his hands. First, the legal situation. Marcus Whitley's family has indeed threatened breach of contract suits against your father. I have lawyers addressing this, arguing coercion and your lack of consent. They shouldn't prevail in court, but the process may be unpleasant. Your lawyers? Keira asked. You don't have to. I'm already involved, and I have excellent lawyers, he continued smoothly. Second, your personal safety. Marcus has been making inquiries about my residence and how to reach you. I've made it clear through appropriate channels that any attempt will be met with severe consequences, but he's desperate enough to try something foolish. So I'm trapped here, Keira said quietly. For now, yes, until the situation stabilizes. Lucien leaned forward. But let's discuss what you want beyond immediate safety. You mentioned last night that you've never made your own choices. Now is your opportunity. Keira blinked. What do you mean? What do you want to do with your life? Career, education, location, anything. You're free to pursue it. Keira floundered. I don't know. I went to college because my father insisted. I was working at his company because he demanded it. I've never thought about what I actually want. Then think about it now, Lucien said gently. What interests you? What makes you feel alive? Keira thought about the charity gala, the speech she'd given. Helping people. Women especially. I volunteered at that shelter, the one I spoke about at the gala, and it felt meaningful in a way nothing else in my life has. Then pursue that. It doesn't exactly pay well, and I'm not qualified for anything more than basic volunteer work. You could get qualified. There are excellent social work programs, therapy certifications, nonprofit management courses. Lucien pulled up something on his tablet. If finances are a concern, I'm willing to invest in your education. You can't just pay for me to go back to school, Keira protested. Why not? I have more resources than I could spend in several lifetimes. Why shouldn't they go toward helping someone build a meaningful life? He tilted his head. Unless you'd prefer to work for it? I could arrange employment in one of my businesses, if you'd be more comfortable with that arrangement. Keira stared at him. You're serious. You'd really do this. I told you, Keira, I want you to be free to choose your own path. That includes having the resources to pursue it. His red eyes held hers. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering investment in potential that would otherwise be wasted. It was too much, too generous. But as Keira looked at Lucien's calm, certain expression, she realized he meant every word. This wasn't manipulation or strings attached. He genuinely wanted to help her build a life. I need time to think about it, she said finally. Take all the time you need. You're welcome here indefinitely. They had dinner together again, falling into easier conversation. Lucien asked about her volunteer work, and Keira found herself opening up about the women she'd met at the shelter, the stories that had broken her heart and inspired her. They had nowhere to go, she said quietly. Abusive relationships, no money, no support. The shelter gave them a chance to rebuild. I wanted to be part of that, and now you can be, Lucien pointed out. Not as a volunteer fitting it in around obligations, but as a dedicated professional with real authority to make change. The idea sent a thrill through her, to actually do meaningful work, to have a career that mattered. It seemed almost impossible. Over the next few weeks, a routine developed. Keira spent her days exploring the library, researching programs, slowly building a vision of what her life could become. She reconnected with Claire through carefully timed calls, keeping her sister updated without revealing too much about her location. And every evening, she had dinner with Lucien. Those dinners became the highlight of her days. Lucien was endlessly fascinating, with centuries of experiences to share. He told her about the French Revolution, the American Civil War, the Roaring Twenties, all lived through his own eyes. He discussed philosophy and art, politics and science, with the depth of knowledge that only true immortality could provide. But he also listened. He asked about her life, her thoughts, her dreams. He treated her opinions with respect, debated with her when they disagreed, made her feel like an equal despite the vast gulf between them. Keira found herself watching for him as sunset approached, anticipating the moment he'd join her. She noticed things she hadn't at first, the way he moved with unconscious grace, the rare smiles that transformed his severe features, the gentleness in his hands when he held doors or poured wine. He was beautiful, dangerous, ancient, and somehow she was falling for him. The realization hit her one evening about 3 weeks after her failed wedding. They were in the library, Lucien showing her first editions of novels she'd studied in college, and he'd smiled at something she said. Really smiled. Genuine and warm and directed entirely at her, and her heart had stuttered in her chest. Oh no, she thought. Oh no, this is a terrible idea. But knowing it was a terrible idea didn't stop the feeling from growing. She found herself looking for excuses to be near him, treasuring every casual touch, memorizing the sound of his voice. Lucien seemed oblivious, treating her with the same courteous warmth he'd shown from the beginning. Of course he was. She was a temporary guest, a human he'd helped, nothing more. Then one night, about a month after she'd arrived, everything changed. They'd finished dinner and were walking through the gardens, something they'd taken to doing when weather permitted. The moon was full, casting silver light over the paths and flowers. Lucien had been telling her about the night gardens of his European estate, hands clasped behind his back as he walked. You should see them, he said. They bloom specifically for moonlight, all white and silver flowers. It's quite breathtaking. It sounds beautiful, Keira said wistfully. Perhaps you will someday, if you'd like to travel. He glanced at her. You never did tell me what you decided about schools. I want to do it, Keira admitted. The social work program at the university. I applied last week, actually. Lucien stopped walking. Did you? That's wonderful. When will you hear back? A few weeks, probably. She twisted her hands together nervously. But that means I should start looking for an apartment, making plans to move out. I can't impose on your hospitality forever. You're not imposing, Lucien said immediately, and there's no need to rush into finding your own place. This situation with Marcus isn't fully resolved. It's been a month. He hasn't tried anything, because he knows the consequences if he does, but that doesn't mean he's given up. Lucien's expression turned serious. I would prefer you stay here, at least until you start school. Afterward, we can discuss more independent arrangements if you wish. Perhaps an apartment in one of my buildings, something secure. You can't keep protecting me forever, Keira said softly. Why not? The question was simple, direct. Keira's breath caught. Because I'm nobody, just some human you helped. You have your own life, your responsibilities. You can't spend all your time worrying about me. Lucien stepped closer, and in the moonlight his features seemed even more otherworldly. You're not nobody, Keira, and I don't consider your presence a burden. What do you consider it? The words came out barely above a whisper. He looked at her for a long moment, something shifting in his red eyes. I consider it the most interesting thing to happen to me in decades, he said finally. Your company, your perspective. Your presence here, it's reminded me why I chose to remain engaged with humanity, rather than retreating into isolation like some of my kind. You've made my home feel less empty. Keira's heart was pounding. Lucien? I know it's not appropriate, he continued, voice low. You're under my protection, which means there's an inherent power imbalance, and you've just escaped one forced situation. The last thing I want is for you to feel pressured into anything else. You're not pressuring me, Keira said, finding her courage. If anything, I'm the one with inappropriate feelings. His eyes widened fractionally. What? I have feelings for you, she said in a rush. I've been trying not to, because it's crazy and complicated and probably a terrible idea. You're a vampire king and I'm just me. But I can't help it. You've been kind and generous and fascinating, and I look forward to seeing you every night. And Lucien kissed her. It was sudden and gentle and electrifying all at once. His cool lips pressed against hers, one hand coming up to cup her face with infinite care. Keira froze for a shocked second, then melted into it, her hands finding his chest as she kissed him back. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Lucien rested his forehead against hers. I've wanted to do that for weeks, he admitted. Why didn't you? Because you needed space to heal, to discover yourself without anyone trying to claim you. He pulled back enough to meet her eyes. I meant what I said about power imbalances. You're free to tell me to stop, to keep our relationship exactly as it was. I won't be offended, and nothing will change about your welcome here. Keira laughed breathlessly. Lucien, I just told you I have feelings for you. Why would I want you to stop? Because sometimes people say things they think they should say, not what they truly want. I need to know this is real for you, not gratitude or obligation or trauma bonding. The seriousness in his voice made her pause, really think about it. Was this real, or was she just transferring her relief and dependency into romantic feelings? No, she knew the difference. What she felt for Lucien was genuine attraction, deepening into something more profound. His intelligence, his honor, his quiet strength. The way he listened, the way he respected her, the way he made her feel seen and valued. It's real, she said firmly. I'm not confused or grateful or traumatized into this. I have feelings for you because you're remarkable, Lucien. You're kind and powerful and interesting, and you make me want to be better. His expression softened completely, all the careful control falling away to reveal something vulnerable underneath. I haven't felt this way in longer than I care to admit, he confessed. When I saw you in that church, I told myself I was simply righting an injustice. But the truth is, I was drawn to you immediately. Your fire, your strength. I wanted to know you. And now? Now I find myself hoping you'll stay longer than necessary, hoping that when you build your new life, I might be part of it." He brushed a strand of hair from her face. "But only if that's what you want. No obligations." Keira stood on her toes and kissed him again, pouring all her certainty into it. "I want this," she murmured against his lips. "I want you." They stayed in the garden for hours, talking and kissing, the conversation flowing into new territory now that the barrier between them had fallen. Lucien told her about past relationships, the loneliness of immortality, the difficulty of connecting with humans who aged while he remained frozen. "It's the hardest part of vampirism," he admitted. "Watching everyone you care about grow old and die while you continue unchanged. I've lost friends, lovers, people I thought I'd have forever. It makes you cautious about forming attachments, but you attached to me," Keira said. "Yes, despite knowing better," he smiled ruefully. "You managed to bypass every defense I've built over centuries. Is that a good thing? I hope so. Time will tell." They walked back to the manor eventually, Lucien's arm around her shoulders, Keira feeling lighter than she had in years. At her door, he kissed her goodnight with careful tenderness. "Sleep well," he murmured. "We'll figure out what this means tomorrow." But tomorrow brought complications neither of them expected. Keira was in the library the next afternoon when Mrs. Chen found her, looking worried. "Miss Zimmerman, there's someone at the gate demanding to see you. He says he's your father." Keira's stomach dropped. "My father is here? Yes, Lord Lucien is still resting, but I've called for him. He'll be awake shortly." Mrs. Chen hesitated. "The gentleman is quite insistent. I'll come down." Keira followed the housekeeper to a security room, where monitors showed the front gate. Sure enough, her father's car sat there. Her father himself standing outside gesturing angrily at the intercom. Behind him was another car. Marcus emerged from it, and Keira's blood ran cold. "They're together," she whispered. "I've notified security," Mrs. Chen said. "They won't be allowed on the grounds. What's happening?" Lucien's voice came from the doorway. He was pulling on a coat, hair slightly disheveled from sleep, but his eyes were sharp and focused. He took in the monitors and his expression hardened. "How did they find this location?" "I don't know, my lord." "My phone," Keira realized. "Oh, God. If they tracked my phone somehow when I called Claire, possible, though it shouldn't have been easy." Lucien moved to the security panel, pressing the intercom button. "Mr. Zimmerman, you're trespassing. Leave immediately." Her father's voice crackled through the speaker. "I want to talk to my daughter. You have no right to keep her from her family. She's an adult making her own choices. Now leave. Not until I see her. Keira." Her father looked directly at the camera. "Keira, come out here. We need to talk about this ridiculous situation." Marcus stepped forward. "She's obviously being held against her will. We're prepared to involve the authorities unless she's produced immediately." Lucien's jaw clenched. "The only people holding anyone against their will were you, forcing her into an unwanted marriage. She's here voluntarily and safe." "Let me talk to them," Keira said quietly. "Please. Maybe I can make them understand." "You don't owe them anything," Lucien said, turning to her. "I know, but they won't leave until they see I'm okay, and I don't want this escalating." She touched his arm. "I can do this. Just come with me?" Lucien studied her face, then nodded. "Of course, but we're not opening the gate. They can speak to you through it." They walked out to the gate together, Lucien's security staff flanking them at a discreet distance. Through the ornate iron bars, Keira could see her father and Marcus standing on the other side, both looking haggard and angry. "Keira, thank God," her father said when he saw her. "We've been worried sick. This creature has been holding you. He hasn't been holding me anywhere," Keira interrupted. "I'm here by choice." "You can't possibly believe that's true," Marcus spat. "He kidnapped you from our wedding, brainwashed you. No one brainwashed me. I left because I didn't want to marry you, Marcus. I never wanted to marry you." Her father's expression turned pleading. "Keira, sweetie, I know you had doubts. But running off with a vampire? Do you understand how insane this is? He's dangerous. He's given me more respect and freedom in a month than you gave me in 22 years, Keira said, voice steady despite her shaking hands. "I'm not coming back. I'm not marrying Marcus. That life is over. You ungrateful little." Marcus started forward and Lucien moved like lightning, suddenly pressed against the gate with eyes blazing red. "Finish that sentence," Lucien said softly, dangerously. "Please, give me a reason." Marcus stumbled back, fear finally overwhelming his anger. Her father tried a different tactic. "What about your sister? Your mother? They need you. The family needs you." "The family needed my sacrifice," Keira corrected. That's not the same thing. And Claire understands why I left. She's turning 18 next month, her father said, and something in his tone made Keira's blood freeze. Without this merger, without the Whitley family's support, well, someone will need to help stabilize the company. The implication hung in the air like poison. Keira felt Lucien tense beside her. You wouldn't, she breathed. You wouldn't do the same thing to Claire. Desperate times, her father said, though he couldn't quite meet her eyes. If you won't fulfill your obligations, if you so much as suggest a forced marriage to your other daughter, Lucien said, voice like ice, I will personally ensure your company not only fails, but that you face criminal charges for coercion. Do I make myself clear? You can't threaten me. It's not a threat. It's a statement of fact. Lucien pulled out his phone, typed something quickly. I've just sent a message to my legal team. They're now monitoring your family's activities. One hint of you trying to repeat this pattern with Claire, and I'll destroy you financially and legally. You'll be lucky to avoid prison. Marcus grabbed her father's arm. This isn't worth it. Let's go. We had a deal, her father hissed at him. The deal is dead. She's not coming back, and I'm not waiting around for that thing to decide to tear my throat out. Marcus was already backing toward his car. Cut your losses. Her father looked between Keira and Lucien, calculations warring with anger in his expression. Finally, he seemed to deflate slightly. You've destroyed this family, Keira. I hope you're happy. I'm free, Keira said quietly. So yes, I am. They drove away, tires squealing slightly on the pavement. Keira watched until the cars disappeared around a bend, then felt her knees go weak. Lucien caught her immediately, strong arms supporting her weight. Easy, he murmured. You did beautifully, so strong. Did you mean it? Keira asked, looking up at him. About protecting Claire? Absolutely. I'll have my lawyers contact her directly, offer her legal protection and financial support if needed. Your father won't use her the way he tried to use you. His expression was grim. I should have anticipated this. Men like him always look for alternative solutions when their first plan fails. Thank you, Keira whispered. For everything, for protecting both of us. Always, Lucien said simply. They went back inside, and Keira immediately called Claire to warn her. Her sister answered on the first ring. Are you okay? Claire asked frantically. Dad just got home and he's furious, smashing things. Listen to me. Keira interrupted. Lucien, the vampire who's protecting me is having his lawyers contact you. They're going to offer you legal protection and financial support. Dad can't force you into anything, understand? You have options. Keira, I'm scared. He's talking about how I'll need to step up, how family obligations. No obligations. You're turning 18 soon and then you're legally an adult. Take Lucien's help. Go to college somewhere far away. Live your own life. Keira's voice was fierce. Don't let them do to you what they tried to do to me. But Mom's medical bills, the company, not your responsibility. They made their choices. You make yours. They talked for an hour, Keira reassuring her sister, making plans. Lucien's lawyers contacted Claire before the call ended, and by the time they hung up, her sister had a safety plan in place. That night, Keira found Lucien in his study, staring out the window at the darkened grounds. Thank you, she said from the doorway, for protecting Claire. You didn't have to do that. Of course I did. She's your sister. He turned to face her. And now she's under my protection as well. Your father won't touch her. Keira crossed the room and wrapped her arms around him, pressing her face against his chest. Lucien held her close, one hand stroking her hair gently. I was so scared, she admitted. Seeing them there, hearing him threaten Claire, it brought everything back. They can't hurt you anymore, either of you. His voice was certain. I promise. They stood like that for long minutes, drawing comfort from each other's presence. Finally, Keira pulled back enough to look up at him. I love you, she said. The words came out easily, naturally, because they were true. Lucien's eyes widened, genuine shock crossing his features. Keira, I know it's fast. I know it's complicated. But I love you, Lucien. Not because you saved me, not out of gratitude, but because of who you are. Your honor, your kindness, your strength, the way you see me as a person, not a possession. She smiled. I love you. He cupped her face in both hands, kissing her with a tenderness that made her heart ache. I love you too, he murmured against her lips. So much. I didn't think I could feel this way again, after so many years alone. But you've changed everything. They spent the night together, not just physically but emotionally, talking until dawn about their future. What it would mean to be together, human and vampire, the challenges they'd face, the complications. I'll age, Keira pointed out. Eventually I'll get old while you stay young. I know. I've thought about it extensively. Lucien laced his fingers through hers. And there are options. If you ever wanted to be turned, to become like me, it's possible. Keira's heart skipped. You'd do that? Turn me? If you wanted it, if you were absolutely certain, it's not a decision to make lightly. Immortality sounds appealing, but the reality is complex. You'd lose sunlight, normal food, the ability to have children. You'd watch everyone you know age and die. It's not romantic, Keira. It's difficult. But we'd have forever, she said softly. We would, but only if that's truly what you want. Not for years yet, regardless. You deserve to live as human for a while longer, experience everything you've been denied. If, in time, you still want it. He shrugged. We'll discuss it then. It was perfect. No pressure, no demands, just possibilities and choices, all hers to make. Over the following months, Keira's life transformed completely. She started her social work program, throwing herself into studies with passionate dedication. She moved into an apartment in one of Lucien's buildings, secure and comfortable, but maintained her own space and independence. But most nights, she ended up back at the manor, sharing dinner with Lucien, falling asleep in his arms. Claire escaped their father's control on her 18th birthday, accepting a full scholarship that Lucien's lawyers had arranged. She moved across the country for college, calling Keira weekly with updates about her new life. Marcus Whitley's business dealings were investigated by authorities after anonymous tips revealed his illegal activities. He ended up facing charges for stock manipulation and fraud. Keira felt no guilt when she heard. He'd earned his consequences. Her father's company eventually folded, unable to survive without the corrupt deals that had been propping it up. Her parents moved to a smaller house, diminished but no longer able to manipulate their daughters, and Keira thrived. Her coursework was challenging but fulfilling. She volunteered at multiple shelters, building real experience and connections. Lucien supported her completely, attending her presentations, celebrating her successes, offering advice from his centuries of experience. The vampire court initially questioned Lucien's involvement with a human, but he faced them down with characteristic confidence. Keira was his choice, and he answered to no one regarding his personal life. They became known, in certain circles, as an unusual couple. The vampire king and his human love, defying convention and expectation. It caused gossip, certainly, but also a strange sort of admiration. Lucien had always been respected. Keira's presence only enhanced his reputation as progressive and principled. 2 years after that interrupted wedding, Keira graduated with her master's degree in social work. Lucien attended the ceremony, one of the few events he could manage thanks to careful timing and heavy sun protection. Watching him in the audience, his white hair and pale skin marking him as different, but his pride in her achievement clear on his face, Keira felt overwhelming love. That night, back at the manor, he gave her a gift, a beautiful old building in the city, perfect for a women's shelter and resource center. It's yours, he said simply, to run as you see fit. Full funding for at least 5 years, with options to extend. Your dream made real. Keira stared at the deed, tears streaming down her face. Her own shelter, the ability to help women the way she'd needed help once. It was everything she'd worked toward. I can't accept this, she whispered. It's too much. It's not nearly enough, Lucien countered. You've worked incredibly hard for this. You deserve the resources to make real change. He pulled her close. Let me help you build something lasting. Something that matters. She accepted, and within 6 months, the Zimmerman Center for Women's Independence was open. Keira poured her heart into it, hiring staff, developing programs, creating a safe haven for women escaping dangerous situations. It was exhausting and fulfilling, and everything she dreamed of. One evening, 3 years after that fateful interrupted wedding, Keira came home to the manor to find Lucien waiting for her in the garden. The same garden where they'd first kissed, now achingly familiar and beautiful. What's the occasion? She asked, noting the candles and elaborate setup. No occasion. Just wanting to do something special for you. Lucien took her hand, leading her to sit beside him. You've built an amazing life, Keira. I'm so proud of everything you've accomplished. I couldn't have done it without you. You could have. You're remarkable all on your own. I just provided resources. He turned to face her fully. I need to ask you something important. Keira's heart started pounding. Okay, we've been together for 3 years now. You're 25. Established in your career, independent and thriving, and I love you more with each passing day. He pulled out a small box, and Keira's breath caught. I know the idea of marriage might still feel complicated for you, given how we met. But I want you to know that you're my choice, my partner, the person I want beside me for however long we have together. He opened the box, revealing an elegant ring with a deep red stone that seemed to glow in the candlelight. Keira Zimmerman, will you marry me? Not because anyone's forcing you, not for family or obligation, but because we choose each other freely. Will you be my wife? Tears were streaming down Keira's face. Yes, she whispered. Yes, absolutely yes. Lucien slipped the ring onto her finger, then kissed her deeply. When they broke apart, both were smiling, the future stretching before them full of possibility. I have one request though, Keira said. No big wedding, no church, just us and the people we actually care about. Lucien laughed. Agreed. I've had my fill of dramatic church scenes. They married 6 months later in the manor's garden, with Claire as Keira's witness and Lucien's oldest vampire friend as his. It was simple, intimate, and perfect. No forced vows, no coercion, just two people choosing each other freely. On their wedding night, curled up together watching the stars from their bedroom window, Keira brought up the question that had been on her mind for months. I've been thinking about what you said, about turning, about immortality. Lucien tensed slightly. And, not yet, but someday. I want more time as human, want to run the center for a while longer, experience this life fully. But eventually, she turned to look at him. Eventually, I'd like forever with you. If the offer still stands. His expression was a mixture of joy and solemnity. It stands. Whenever you're ready. We have all the time in the world. Literally, Keira joked, and Lucien smiled. Years passed. The center thrived, expanding to multiple locations. Claire graduated and joined Keira's work, the sisters finally free to build meaningful lives together. They reconciled minimally with their mother after their father's death, maintaining distant but civil relations. Keira traveled, experiencing everything she'd been denied in her early life. She hiked mountains, visited other countries, learned new languages. Lucien accompanied her when he could, and when he couldn't due to sun exposure, he supported her adventures completely. She lived fully, freely, joyfully. Everything she'd dreamed of that day when Lucien burst through the church doors. At 35, feeling she'd accomplished what she wanted in her human life, Keira approached Lucien with her decision. I'm ready, she said simply. Ready for forever with you. The transformation was painful but manageable with Lucien's careful guidance. When Keira emerged 3 days later, she barely recognized herself in the mirror. White hair, pale skin, red eyes. Beautiful and otherworldly and powerful. How do you feel? Lucien asked, holding her as she adjusted to her new senses. Different. Stronger. But still me. She turned in his arms, seeing him with vampire vision for the first time. He was even more beautiful to her enhanced sight. And I have you forever now. That's what matters. They had forever. To continue her work, expanded now to helping both humans and vampires navigate their worlds, to travel, to love, to build a life that mattered. Together, sometimes Keira thought about that church, the wedding dress she'd burned, the life she'd narrowly escaped. If someone had told her that day that her salvation would come in the form of a vampire king, she'd never have believed them. But standing beside Lucien as they watched another sunset together, eternal and partnered and deeply in love, she knew she'd made the right choice. Every choice since had been hers to make, and she'd chosen this life, this love, this future freely. The center continued to grow under their joint leadership, a beacon for those who needed help escaping forced situations. Keira trained other social workers, sharing her insights from both sides of humanity now. She became a voice for change, speaking at conferences and influencing policy. Lucien watched her thrive with constant pride and support, never trying to control or limit her despite his power and position. Their partnership was built on mutual respect, love, and the freedom to be themselves completely. Together, they became legends in both human and vampire societies. The vampire king who valued human dignity above tradition, and the woman who'd chosen her own destiny so thoroughly that she transformed from victim to survivor to thriving immortal advocate. Their story was told in whispers at first, then more openly as times changed. The interrupted wedding became famous, a symbol of resistance against forced marriages and coercion. Young women learned about Keira Zimmerman, who'd said no at the altar and built an empire of help for others. Decades passed. Then centuries. The world changed around them, but their love remained constant. They adapted, evolved, continued their work in new forms as society progressed. And every year on the anniversary of that interrupted wedding, they returned to the manor's garden. To the place where Keira had first placed her hand in Lucien's and chosen freedom, where they'd fallen in love, surrounded by flowers and moonlight. Do you ever regret it? Lucien asked one such anniversary, centuries into their life together. Choosing this path instead of a normal human existence? Keira laughed, the sound bright and joyful. Never. Not once. You gave me the greatest gift anyone could, the ability to choose. Everything after that has been an adventure, even the hard parts, especially the hard parts, because I chose them freely. She kissed him softly. I chose you, and I'd choose you again every single day. Lucien held her close as the moon rose over their garden, their sanctuary, their home. I love you, he murmured, My brave, brilliant, beautiful wife. I love you too, Keira replied, my protective, powerful, perfect husband. And in that moment, surrounded by centuries of love and partnership, both knew with absolute certainty that they'd found something extraordinary. Not just love, though they had that in abundance, but freedom, respect, and the joy of choosing each other repeatedly throughout endless time. The interrupted wedding had given Keira her life back. Everything since had been her choice to share that life with someone who cherished her, supported her, and loved her without reservation. That was worth more than any forced vows could ever have been. That was everything. The stars wheeled overhead as they stood together, Vampire King and his queen, partners in every way that mattered. Their story had started with desperation and rescue, but it had grown into something far more profound. A love built on choice, sustained by respect, and lasting into eternity. And they lived that eternity fully, freely, joyfully together, forever.